from a .33 to a .50 FTE to teach additional college algebra class because of the class size. So I've made that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I would make a motion to approve the long-term subcontract effective 8/30 for Noel Bergson for the remaining of the school year.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
How many school nurses are there? 2?
This ain't, that's the next one.
Is that new?
We're still on Noel Ferguson. You're ahead of us.
Do you have any questions on her?
No.
Can we,
She's curious.
you're getting ahead of us there. Cindy.
All those in favor of the Noel Bergson?
I'll make some motion.
That's done.
Now we're at.
Now we're just voting.
Now we're gonna vote on it. We have a first and a second, and we're,
Discussion.
no discussion from me.
No.
You're all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Now, I will make a motion to approve a part-time nurse position 3 days a week for Rebecca Christensen, effective 9/7. Anybody want a second?
I'll second.
Discussion. Now your question would be fabulous.
So-
We'd love to talk about it.
We're adding. I'm
Yeah,
assuming.
it's actually, it's posted as a nurse position, but it's not really, I wouldn't really classify as a nurse position. She has an RN license. She's more of like she was a nurse for us when
So it's not nurse.
we were, I can't remember our position, when Casey, we had a nurse, Casey, who was on maternity leave, and then she filled in, and then Casey ended up staying out the remainder of the year because her baby was born premature. So Rebecca stayed on for the remainder of the year for us. And then Rebecca filled in last year when we needed some extra help because of COVID. So Rebecca's kind of been a part-time person for us. It's kind of just filled in when we've needed help. We advertised it as a part-time nurse, although we're paying, I think, $25 or $26 an hour. It's a 3-hour-a-day position, three days a week, and kind of as needed. It's really flexible. Some weeks when it's kind of slow, Rebecca it hasn't really even, like last week, she didn't even work 3 days a week. So it's really a flexible position. So her and Jamie really kind of work it out as a week by week thing.
I'm sure there's things that get done that probably don't get done with one night.
Right. So we basically have one nurse and then a health clerk. So she's kind of almost, I would guess you could classify it more as a health clerk. She does have the license, but we didn't really need that license because they work under Jamie's licensure. But she isn't a registered nurse she hasn't practiced she still has it, but she's been a stay-at-home mom for many years. But it works out for her because she doesn't really care if she works 5 days a week, 3 days a week, 2 days a week. She kind of works when she needs us, when we need her to, and it works out really good for us because she's willing to work 3 days, 5 days, 0 days. Right. Yeah, so it's really good for us because if it it's kind of that.
You have one person. And
Yeah,
you probably don't have to have subs that you have to worry about.
Right. So it works good for us. I kind of put her in place. If we get hit really bad in a few weeks, that she's there for us. And like last week, she didn't work at all. It's used out of ESSER, and we're using ESSER dollars to cover it.
Just out of curiosity, I know at one point we got to a size where we had to have very specific licensure because of our student count. At what point is our student count to the point where we do have to have one on staff?
You just have to have one.
No matter, you have 20,000 kids, you still only need
I
one?
believe they all can work underneath the one registered health. You can have health clerks, you just need to have one licensed personnel.
Okay, but even as a health clerk, at what, is there a certain number level?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Like Elk River had one registered nurse, and then the health clerks, they may have had two, but like,
So, but we can decide at what point we
Yeah.
feel we
Need to have two or-
additional
yeah.
health clerk.
yeah, you can have health clerks. Like we could
Yeah.
put two health clerks in, they both work underneath your licensure, they work underneath Jamie's license.
My question
Yep.
is, at what point?
What we decide, there's no requirements of that. Nope.
It's 1,500,
Nope,
2,000 kids.
right. So
Okay.
it's up to us. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? No? All those in favor for approving part-time nursing position with Rebecca Christensen?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Policy.
We are on the third reading of policy number 620, credit for learning. What can I say? I make a motion
To approve it.
to approve. The third reading.
Any second?
I'll second.
Perfect. Any discussion?
What was, you want to remind me again?
That before you go PSEO, that you're gonna have it written down and approved by admin before you go.
Beautiful.
No, that's the
That's-
PSEO, but it's credits that,
Transfer.
Outside.
The transfer.
Outside,
the
yeah.
school,
yeah, outside,
not PSEO, any higher education.
Yeah.
Higher.
non-registered. Are there any other policies yet?
We have a motion and a second. No, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
Just an FYI, we do have some new policies out there, so we will be meeting probably in the
In
next
case
month.
you were having any
Sounded like we're meeting at
problems
some
with,
point for curriculum too, next
Yeah.
month.
Probably,
unless you're having any
Maybe
problems
some
with
dates and we'll have to figure
yeah,
out.
you'll need to,
insomnia, those.
you'll be up
ready to
this
take
month.
care of your issues. Okay.
You didn't think it was gonna be this easy, did you, Cassandra?
I was like, I didn't.
Budget.
Budget, we met Thursday, September 16th. And first, in your side packet here, one with colors on it. We're gonna talk about the levy resolution. This paper shows the taxes levied 2021 payable for 2022. And you can see this bottom right number of a minus 3.7%. So if we take the full amount, taxes will go down 3.7%. So it's nice to share that. So I would make a motion, this is an action item, that we approve preliminary certification of 2021 payable 2022 levy resolution. That was in our packet.
Second.
Just because Randy and Cassandra haven't ever seen this before, a little bit
What
more
made it- what made it
information
change?
on this. So the top general levies, those are all different levies that are different payable levies that we can levy our taxpayers. So if you look over to the right, there you see it to the two columns there, you see the state. If you see the X's there, those are the X means that that's all state. That's money that the state will give us. And the X's on the local, that means that the local taxpayers pay, okay? So if there's an X by it under state, that's a state levy. If there's an X by the local, that means it's a local levy. If there's an X in both of them, it's a local and a state. So if there's a red column there, that means that if that levy actually went down this year based off of what we put in. So you can see a negative, some of them were negative levies. I'm going to point out the two numbers there, number 10 and number 11. Those really are the two different local option levies, first tier and second tier. every year, basically the school can levy up to $724 per pupil unit. So every student that we have, you as a board can levy up to $724. Most schools levy that total amount every year. There's only a few, like a few years ago, I think there was like 10 schools across the state that didn't take the full amount of money. When you levy the dollars in September, you can levy the county, you tell the county in September what you plan on. Usually you can only, in September, you tell the county what you levy. You can always, in December, then you set your final levy. You can always reduce it in December, but you can never increase it. Okay, so the usual perception of what we've done as this board is we usually have taken the full amount because you can always reduce it after you see what the tax impact is when you get your property tax statements in November around Thanksgiving. But so the optional levy on number 10 and number 11, that's at $724. That's the most, that's the highest impact. The other ones are pretty small, minimal levies. Your lease levy, your safe school levy, your career and technical levy, those are all different levy amounts that we can choose to take on. The other one I should say, point out that number 7, that lease levy, you can't choose to levy, you can't change that one because we've taken that one, that's the early childhood. We built the early childhood back in 2007? I can't remember exactly. 2006. The board lease levied that to build that facility. So that money has already been committed to, so you can't change that. So you paid for that out of a lease levy to build that facility as a board a few years ago. So that one is there, you can't change that one. So some of the other ones you can, like safe school levy, you could say, well, we're gonna lower that one. We're gonna lower the career tech levy and some of those. So you can play around with some of these levies and such and forth. But as you see, we opted to take all those, if you put all those amounts in, the bottom number at the very bottom, it looks like it's gonna go down, it's 3%. So as Becky pointed out, we put in the highest amount that we could take. And by the looks of it, it's gonna predict that your taxes would go down. Now, as I say, your taxes as a board, as a resident of our district, doesn't mean your taxes will go down. Depends on what your value of your property goes. If your value of your property goes up, your taxes might still go up. But you as a board,
It's not because of us.
your levy's going down. But that doesn't mean as a resident, if you get your property taxes, your taxes might go up, but you're levying less money, if that makes sense. So it looks, looks good as a board. To take the full amount, you're actually telling the county you want less dollars based off of this -3. So I just wanted to point out some of those different things, if that makes sense to you.
Thank you.
So any other questions that I could?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
What did we promise when we went after the referendum on taking?
For 2 years, we said we would take, I don't remember, what was it?
75,000, I think, for the first.
75,000 for the first 2 years.
So even though the taxes are going down, which we're taking more than we
Right.
agreed we would.
Right. Yep. But remember our the conversation last year was, we changed the conversation was when we needed to take more money to finish the project. That's kind of what the conversation was, why we did take more money. So, because we had to put more money into the project to finish the maintenance because the bids were higher. So with that thought, even with that, our taxes still went down last year. I mean, so,
No, I know.
yeah, so just,
I'm not saying
No.
I disagree with taking
No.
the amount, other than the fact that we made
we
a promise.
promise, yep. So And I was just pointing out
Yeah.
that even with taking the full amount last year, the
Yeah.
taxes still went down. So even with taking that full amount, we're still showing that it should still stay, should still go down. Yep. So,
And like I said, I'm fine with this, other than the fact that I made a promise and I'm a promise fulfiller. So I don't have a problem with this, except I want to make sure I remember in my head what that promise was. So, any other questions? And again, we can take it now and lower it at any.
yeah, and you can see what your tax statements look like when they come out in November. Right.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved.
All right, secondly, we talked about the first budget revision. And we have a packet about that. And Missy, are you gonna wanna point out the highlights on this packet?
It's up to you. I can.
Yes, I will let you.
That was easy, huh?
Yeah. Which you have a nice highlight page in there.
I think he's gonna pull it up.
I think it'll take a second. I think it shut down.
It was sleeping. I think we could probably get started while it warms up.
I was gonna suggest the same thing.
All right, so the first couple of pages, your normal, just informational. And then, once you get to about it's back to back, so about the third page in, has the highlights of the revised budget. This is just highlighting the most significant changes. I didn't put every little penny on there, just the most significant. So the top is savings to the district, so we used more of our ESSER funding. Health insurance savings, we had an increase in kiddos. And then once the state approved their budget finally in June, there was a jet ed formula change. They came back with a 2.45% and we had budgeted at 2%. So that added a little bit of revenue to our budget. Then some cost increases. We had some teacher lane changes. The teachers are allowed to make lane changes the 1st of September and the 1st of January. So 9/1 was the time for them to do that, and many of them took advantage of that. We did add a title position this year, and then we did add some interventionists as well. We did have to increase our custodial. Obviously, we have more area to cover now, so we have to adjust for that. And then we did hire a elementary long-term sub for the school year. So with all of the changes between the savings and the cost increases, it does put us at 186,000 to the positive is what we're looking at right now. Any questions so far? Okay. All right, so the next,
just highlight the next line though. So that's a difference from the original.
from the original
That's
budget,
the 700 and,
it was a swing of 731,000. The official budget in June, we were predicting about a 545,000 shortfall.
Good budget.
And then the next page is just highlights of the other funds, our food service, community ed, and the building construction fund. Food service, not much changed, just the health insurance expenses in food service and community ed. Building and construction fund is on schedule. Nothing's really changed there. Now, the next 3 pages will go over the general fund revenue. So the middle column is going to be the amounts that were approved in June with the revenue sources. So you can see in June, we approved a revenue budget of 14.2, and in the first revision, we are predicting a $15 million sources for revenue. And then in the pie chart, you can kind of see where the funds are coming from.
I want to make sure I'm on the same page as
Oh.
you.
This one? And then the next 2 pages just go over some of the expenditures. So again, the middle chart is the official budget. So we are predicting about 14.9. And then with the revision, we're still at 14.9, just a small difference there. Now, take into account that this is just listed by program expenses. Now remember, with UFARs, there's certain ways that we have to report to the state. So this is just program expenses, but it gives you a breakdown of where the expenses are with administration, district support, elementary and secondary instruction, vocational, special ed, pupil support, sites, buildings, et cetera. So it kind of gives you a breakdown of where those expenses are going to. And then the next page is also the expenses in a different format. This is doing it by object codes. So again, we're still at that 14.9. Now the object codes, this does not include any debt service or staff development. It's just the way it's broken down. But again, you can kind of see how it's broken down by salaries, benefits, purchase services, supplies, capital, other expenses. You can see where those expenses are going from. And then the next 2 pages cover just food service, so pretty standard, pretty simple, not much changed here. Revenue didn't change for food service from what we're predicting from the original budget to the first revision. And expenses, the only change was insurance benefits. And again, the kiddos are getting free breakfast and lunch this year again as well, so. And then next is community ed. There was a small like $11 change in community ed revenue. And then the only difference in the expenditures was some health insurance savings. So pretty stable there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I would make a motion to approve the first revision to the 21-22 budget.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
The next thing we had talked about, we had talked a little bit more about the ESSER funds. We still have some of those buckets. And in this budget that we just looked at, we only included the ESSER funds that we have allotted to what they're gonna be used for. So we still have money in that bucket and ideas that they kind of went through where those,
We're expendable.
where it could be spent. Then we talked about, the audit is in process and usually is approved in October, so that's coming up. We haven't gotten through that yet. We also talked about, Governor Walz said that he is going to give school districts money for the pupils they lost out of the school last year. So more to come on that, about when it'll be and how much it'll actually be, and those details are coming. And that was all that we talked about.
Did we get enrollment numbers?
I'll
I
have
saw
it in my
that
report.
So I skipped it because I saw it way down
Oh, I
here.
didn't even pay attention.
Okay, anything else from business manager? Okay, you are on our list again. Thank you for your report. Okay. G, now we're on other. We were voted. You want me to say it
Or you
or?
can say it.
I seen it on Facebook. It was lovely. We were voted Pillager as the 2021 Best of the Lakes Area School.
Nice.
So
Yay.
good for us. I don't know, I didn't vote on that, so I didn't even get to put in like 18 votes because I didn't see where to vote.
Yeah, it's I'd like to congratulate the staff on that.
Yeah.
It's a nice accomplishment for our school and our area. Says a lot, I think, for our recognition. I think it says a lot for, because they're the ones that I believe that says for the things that they do. So I applaud them for that.
Awesome. Some of us have known it all along, but I'm glad everybody else has now got public knowledge. Enrollment update.
I believe you got this handed out to you. Yep, so we are, as of today, we're at 1252. So that's up about 115 or 116 from last year. So we did lose a few from the beginning of the first day. You know, some kids decided not to come. I think when it was all said and done, we were at one point, I think at 1268 or something like that. So, and then we had some that always, you know, that you don't know that aren't coming. We did have some opt out to remain homeschooling at the last minute when we decided not to mask. I think some decided there were a couple of large families I think there were 2 or 3 families of 4 kids each. So that's, you know,
It's nice that they have that.
that option, yep. So we're at 1252, we have 100 kids in kindergarten. So that's a good sized kindergarten class. And we lost 59, I believe, in the seniors. So our last small class is gone, and we're now, every student group is at least 80 some or bigger. So that's our enrollment update.
Just out of curiosity, 4th grade I know has been closed for a while.
Yep.
Did we close 5th grade also?
Yes, we are, well, we were, it looks like we're at 104 right now,
So
so.
it's right on the bubble.
Yeah.
But we, some of the lower grades, did we end up having to close?
We did not.
Okay.
No.
Just curious.
As far as I know, we closed 5th grade at one point, but it looks like we're at 104, so I don't know if we pulled everybody off the waiting list. So they're back open again, because there is room for one more.
They'll be running now that we've got that metal on us.
Mhm.
I can feel it. You would like to review the COVID-19 guidance plan?
Yeah, you should have this in your packet, I believe.
Yep.
Right? So,
Oh,
you have it?
That's fine.
not in this in front of us,
It was
but
online.
on the,
It's fine.
I'll get it here then. I made you copies, I'm sorry.
oh, well, great.
While you talk, I'll
It
pass.
doesn't
Thank you.
fold in here on my phone.
I made you copies. I didn't know if you had it or not, so. Administratively, we talked right before school started that we felt that it would be good to have some kind of guidance. You know, if we started to have cases here at school, you know, what would we do? You know, what would be our mitigation strategies if we started to have some cases? So we came up with this sheet here that you can see, you know, and I don't want to call it a policy. I don't want to call it, you know, I don't want you as a board to vote on it. That's not what, in my opinion, what this is. What I really sat down and, you know, Ryan and I talked about this with Jamie, our nurse, and I think as a superintendent, it kind of, you know, I was sitting there thinking one day, you know, if we started to get an uptick in cases, and I had a parent come to me and ask me, you know, when, you know, what are you going to do as a superintendent? When are you going to require masks, or what is your strategy, or what is your plan? You know, I didn't have in my head what I was going to do. You know, was it going to be this, or was it going to be that, or what was my answer to that? Well, when I felt like it, or when my gut told me to do it, I didn't have an answer to that.
When I get enough.
So we thought it was important to kind of have something as a plan in place that the three of us could kind of talk through and look at some of those indicators that we would have. So we really wanted to have it kind of laid out by building too, because, you know, all along we've kind of said that we wanted to treat it separately, because what was going on in the high school might be completely different than what's going on in the elementary, and vice versa. So we kind of came up with these guidance, and I want to really say to you too that, you know, this is a work in progress, because we don't know what we don't know. So we kind of used some area schools too, had some things like this as well. So what you see is some indicators for us, like in the elementary, we kind of talked about if you had 2 positive cases in one classroom, some of the interventions that we might use would be, we might require masking in that room for 14 days. We might do some other mitigations, things such as make students sit 3 feet away from each other in the classroom. That would be in the classroom, for example. If in the building wise, if we had 7 to 10 positive cases, we might decide to have the elementary mask up for 14 days. We might require distancing in 3 feet. We might do other strategies such as do different things in lunchrooms. We might do, I don't want to read through all these different strategies here. We also talked about if we had over 5% out of illnesses because we may not have all of the cases reported to us. So I want to also say to you that 7 to 10 is just a rough number, because as you look at that, we might say, and I want to state to you too, that we might have 8 cases and I might not say we're going to mask up, because as you look at those cases, it might be 2 families. Do we have an issue if it's in 2 families? Well, those 2 families might have been at a reunion. So just because we're at 8 cases doesn't mean we're going to mask up.
Are you saying people in Villager might be related to
Yeah.
each other?
So, it's a guidance. It's giving us something to look at. It's giving us something to follow, but it doesn't mean it's set in stone. And the other thing that we've kind of, now that, we have some area schools that have started to look at some different policies and procedures, we can look at them and seeing what they're doing right now. And we can say, well, have what they've done, has it changed? Has it helped or not? It might say to us after they've done it, we saw that it really did help or it didn't help. Maybe some other strategies would help more, such as splitting lunchrooms more and having separate lunchrooms in bigger areas, having the middle school and high school release class periods at a different time rather than having all the kids in the hallways. Different things might work better. So just wanted to share this with you. So I want to be sure to let you know that it's a guidance for us, but it helps me answer to that parent that comes to me and says, you don't have a plan. No, we do have a plan. It's not set in stone, but we have thought through some things and we do have some ideas. I don't know if you have any questions, but it's looking at our individual numbers, our individual cases, and it's taking it by building. It doesn't mean it's school-wide. And the other thing that I really do like about it is it's looking at it, if we do have to mask up, it's 14 days. When the numbers drop down, it's not saying we're going to mask up for the whole year. If we do indeed mask up, and we may not mask up because our area schools, it might show that it didn't help. Or it does. I don't know. But it does, at least we have a plan.
Minnesota Department of Health hasn't said anything to school districts?
No. So, any other questions?
Any other questions? Okay.
I want to say I appreciate Jamie and Ryan helping me with this. And we may find out that, for example, that 7 to 10, we might be at 7 to 10 all the time. And it isn't really that number might need to be 14 to 18. We may need to adjust these numbers because 7 to 10, we're always at 7 to 10. It really isn't a realistic number. We started with this. It was our starting point. We may find right, maybe that 5%, you know what? We were always at 5%. That's not a very good realistic number. That maybe should be 7%. We didn't know what we didn't know. So it's a work in progress, kind of, if that means. So I might be updating this all the time. So, okay?
Okay, perfect. Or as perfect as we can get.
Yeah.
All right, we'd like to thank the following businesses that have supported the Pillager School with and throughout the construction process: Woodseth Smith and Knowlting, K. Johnson Construction, Lundberg Plumbing, Youngbauer Landscaping, Mad Dog Interiors, Heartland Glass, Herzog Roofing, Norson, Audia Construction, thank you, Phelan Heating, Holden Electric, Franson Decorating, and Jonathan Barnes. Anybody and everybody else that
Many other little
there's
subcontractors.
always somebody.
Yeah.
So and everyone else. Thank you very much. We're all excited to see it and be using it. Superintendents report.
Couple other items, if you want to hand some of these out too. I got couple other
I'd love
pieces.
nothing more.
You do great work for me.
Aye.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, Sarah is passing out a little homecoming flyer that Sarah put together with the homecoming activities in a few weeks. So I wanted to share that with you. Some mini activities coming up for homecoming at that date. Aviance reported to me that we will have our coffee bar will be shipped September 24th. So that coffee and smoothie bar.
Will they serve tea?
I don't think there's tea, sorry. I think there's smoothies. So, but that will be started here sometime towards the end of the month, first part of October. Blood donation, if you're willing to donate blood, October 13th. They're going to do it in the community center, but you have to go online, right? Fairground, and you have to get an appointment. So if you go online, I think it was shared on our Facebook page. And then you pick a time and you sign up. But that is on October 13th.
The outing. Pops pizza right into it.
Yep. CTC Center training. I know Mr. Cool here and many of our other people started some of the training this past Wednesday. I think Mr. Cool would tell you that it's going to be a phenomenal facility. They started the lighting training. Please no lightning. The lighting training was last week. I know they'll have,
Difficult than what we had.
yeah,
Pretty much.
a little bit
the
different.
same, right?
Yeah, it's going to be phenomenal.
100 years of difference.
It's going to be nice. Aviance also let me know that we are going to start seeing some food supply chain issues like everywhere else. There is an application for waiver that we have to complete with MDE because we will not be able to follow the nutritional guidelines because some of the products that we have to get because of the guidelines that you have to follow aren't available. For example, you have to follow certain wheat guidelines and things. Those products you can't get, you can't find. So once they get to that point, you have to go online and tell the MDE that you can't follow the guidelines. So in the next few weeks, I know some restaurants have already, if you go to like Buffalo Wild Wings, they aren't offering their wing special anymore because they can't get enough wings, for example. So the food supply chain is getting tougher and tougher, and they anticipate that to be even worse in the next few weeks. So not that they're going to have issues with food, they'll have food. It's just some of the nutritional values that they are on strict things that they have to get. They can't find those things. So so that's going to be an issue. So they let me know that. Declining enrollment dollars, Becky talked about that. So we're going to get 80% of that money in based off of our declining enrollment that we had last year. I'll have that number for you once we find that number out in October, and then we'll get the rest of it in January. So there'll be an additional pot of money, I guess you could say. I was informed at my superintendent meeting last week from our MESA and MSBA that we should get more information on our vaccination mandate or testing from the federal government and Mr. Biden from sometime in mid-October with the who, what, how, and when. All of that information should come out around MEA and what that will entail. So that'll be coming out to us soon. I passed out, I should say Sarah passed out to you, MREA info.
You can take the credit.
I did, well, I like to. We are a member of our MREA, which is Minnesota Rural Education Association. They have a big conference if you are interested in going. I believe it's in November. Our band is going to be performing, our small ensemble is going to be performing at their awards banquet. on Sunday. But they have I guess you could say a convention. If you are interested in going to that, let me know. We can get you signed up for it. But they are a good organization that we belong to. They do a bunch of lobbying for rural schools, and they help support the different things that affect us versus the metro area. So this map shows all the schools, districts that are in red that belong to it. The ones in yellow don't. So obviously you can see why the schools that don't are the metro schools. But we have a lobbyist, Sam Carlson, who does a great job for us. Bob Indahar is our executive director. He came out last week and met with me and toured our facilities, was very impressed with our school and our building and our parking. I had to drop that in there.
I knew you would.
Yep. He couldn't believe the amount of parking that we had. So I always get hammered on us, all of us, because we don't have parking. So I had to say that. Yeah, we fight about it all the time. And I didn't even tell him to say it. So we were walking around and he goes, "Well, you guys got a lot of parking." I'm like, "Can I say that to my board chair?" Because she never says we do. But anyway,
Say that into the camera.
I did. I said it a little louder.
See how many you called.
Yeah. But anyway, he was impressed with our facility, and but they do a great job for rural schools and try to get a lot of the funding. A couple of things they did a few years ago that was one of the huge impacts was how buildings, there was a huge discrepancy on when you pass a building bond, how much was affected the farmland. And now they got that basically dropped, how farmland got counted against the, it's better for them now. So that was a big factor on how it was easier for rural schools to pass bonds for building new facilities. So they got that, that really helped rural schools be able to pass new bonds for facilities, newer facilities. So he wanted me to pass that out and just tell you that he appreciated us being a member of MREA. And the last thing I have was just to recognize, which we mentioned just a little bit to earlier, Shauna Wynn, who was our reading corps teacher, who jumped into action a few weeks ago when we had a young student who was choking on a lifesaver. And she noticed it in the hallway and jumped out and performed the Heimlich maneuver and saved a young student from choking. And so I wanted to recognize her publicly and thank her for jumping forward and saving or helping this young student. Some people freeze in that situation. She didn't. And so I wanted to recognize her publicly and thank her for her service and jumping to save this young student. So I wanted to thank her. So
Thank you.
that is all I have. Oh, one last thing. Just not that I wanted to go into a whole lot of detail, but I have a survey here that Cass County did with the 5 schools in Cass County. It's a rather long survey that the school districts did with our administration and counselors, along with Cass County on truancy, and in conjunction with our Cass County social workers and health departments on the things that we are seeing with our students on truancy and how we can work together to try to help kind of, what could they do to help us and what we can do to help them. So it's really nice that the county and schools together are trying to tag team this, because a lot of times, the schools pass a student issue on to the county, and the counties get overloaded, with a lot of students. And face it, you got a lot of students, especially last year, with the county and the state, or the state passing on that says you can't do anything with truancy in the time of the pandemic. You couldn't do anything with them. So, the county recognized that we still have an issue, and they couldn't do a whole lot of with the pandemic issue. But they're still want to try to do some things with conjunction with the schools and moving forward. So the 5 schools, along with Sourcewell, was kind of helping mediate that with our county. So we're tag teaming that project together. And this was just a survey that you can see how long and detailed that survey was. So it's nice that the county along with our school districts are working together and trying to see what kind of programming we can do and how they can help us with that. So I just wanted to share that with you. And if you're interested in reading that survey, I didn't attach that because it was like 80 pages. But if you want to see that, you're welcome to see that. So I just wanted to share that as an FYI.
Thank you.
That's all I got.
Awesome. Any other board reports? Nope. Then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Did you say second?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
I think.
All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Motion is adjourned.
Thanks.
Done deal.
Yes, motion's not adjourned, the meeting is.